Hello. In this presentation, I'm going to show a step-by-step way to help students understand direct and indirect object pronouns and eventually use them together. So we'll begin with something that students should already know, direct object pronouns. Now, remember that direct object pronouns answers the questions what or whom. What is a direct object pronoun? Like I just said, it answers the questions what or whom. Um, so here we have some examples. Before students can replace an object with a pronoun, they have to be able to find the object, look at each sentence, and ask themselves what receives the action. Also, remember that the direct object pronoun can be more than one word and it's not always at the end of the sentences. So let's take a look at all of the work examples. Step by step, here it identifies the direct object pronoun. It also has a picture. And here are some more direct object pronouns with other words like adjectives, which the goal is to replace the entire direct object pronoun, which means the noun and the adjectives that go with it. Here are some examples again. We mark here the direct object pronoun, and then the rest of the sentence could be put back in the sentence with the direct object pronoun, or it could be left out completely. So before you can replace an object with a pronoun, with a direct object pronoun, or subject or another pronoun, you have to be able to find it. That's why I presented those sentences with the highlight. So you got to look at each sentence and identify them and figure out what or who is receiving the action of the sentence. And this is the purpose that we do this. We use direct object pronouns to replace the direct object pronoun in a sentence and avoid repetition. Now, you cannot just walk in a room and expect people use direct object pronouns right away because you should know a little bit of the background information in those sentences because you kind of know what it is first and then you keep talking about it so you don't keep mentioning the noun or the person, the subject, the object pronoun, you just replace it. Just like if you would use a personal pronoun instead of the subject, you should already know what's being talked about. Okay. So it is important to identify the direct object pronoun, like I just said, before we actually choose to replace it. You got to recognize it, identify it, and also figure out their gender and number. So let's look at some examples. ¿Quién tiene el libro? David tiene el libro. And el libro would be the direct object pronoun. So we would answer shorter, like the shorter answer would be David lo tiene. And the libro gets replaced with lo, which is a singular masculine direct object pronoun. Let's see, me gustan mucho las playas de Puerto Rico. So the direct object pronoun would be las playas de Puerto Rico. And all of that, the beaches of Puerto Rico get replaced by las because it's plural beaches. So it's going to be plural feminine. Hear that? Las visito los veranos. I'm still talking about las playas, but now I'm using las like I visit them every summer. So las replaces las playas de Puerto Rico. That is the direct object pronoun. Here are a little bit more information about the number and gender. So feminine and singular is going to be la, feminine and plural is going to be las. Masculine and singular is going to be lo, and then masculine and plural is going to be los. So here is a step-by-step guide on how to replace them. Let's take a look at the sentence. Yo leo los libros. So los libros is what you're looking to replace. That is the direct object pronoun. So it would be los because it's plural masculine. Second step would be decide whether it's singular, plural, masculine, feminine. I kind of already talked about that. So it's going to be plural masculine. Third step, choose the pronoun is going to be los in this case. Fourth step, rewrite the sentence, putting the pronoun before the verb. One thing that I forgot to mention earlier, the direct object pronouns do go in front of the verb once you use them in Spanish. So they can go between the subject pronoun and the verb, or you can just omit the subject pronoun of the sentence completely and begin your sentence with the direct object pronoun would be los leo or yo los leo. Rewrite the sentence and remember, do not continue to use los libros. Do not continue to use the direct object pronouns once you have replaced it with los. Yo los leo. So here are some more examples. I'm not going to go into detail, but I'm going to show you. So las maletas will turn into las, and there's the position of the daf. It's in front of the verb. Los pasajes would go and turn into los, and they are right in front of the verb after the subject. And una revista would turn into la once again. Let's take a look at this detail example. So we have el camarero sirve la comida. So la comida would be the direct object pronoun. It is singular feminine, and we are going to replace it with la. So el camarero la sirve would be the answer. And remember, the direct object pronoun goes in front of the verb. So answers the question to what is being served, who or what is being served. So it's going to be la comida, and it gets replaced with la, el camarero la sirve. So I'm going to skip the rest of the examples for the purpose of this video because I'm going to move on to indirect object pronouns really quickly. And in a regular classroom, I would go over all of the examples in detail to have more practice for the students and have the students actually write them out on the board or on paper, just so I know they actually learned it. And this lesson with direct object pronouns, it should last like 2 days at least, so they can get the feel of it and really solidify their learning. So let's move on to indirect object pronouns. So here's the presentation for indirect object pronouns. The students have already seen these when they study the verbs like gustar. So they are a little bit different from the direct object pronouns. Here's the chart. This is background, like information they already should have. They should know direct object pronouns and indirect object pronouns, but now they need to figure out how to put them together. That's the purpose of this presentation. So let's take a look at what indirect object pronouns do. Let's review. They usually answer the questions for who or to whom, and they replace that person in the sentence that is receiving the action. So it's the receiver. So yo le ordené la langosta. I ordered the lobster for her. For her gets replaced by le. And then this is the order of how you're going to rewrite the sentence. Subject, verb, direct object, indirect object. And then that's how you would write it without replacing anything. Él me da una ensalada. He gives a salad to me. So to me turns into me. So you got your subject, verb, direct object, and indirect object. So the purpose of studying these, like reviewing these and then putting them together, is to replace indirect object pronouns with direct. And that's what we're going to learn at the end of the video. We should learn how to do that. So let's review a little bit with the actual indirect object pronouns. So the question is, the sentence is, el camarero sirve la comida a ella. So we need to figure out who's receiving the action. Who is the person that's going to receive this food? So the person that will receive the food would be ella. So we need to replace a ella or leave it in the sentence if we want to be more clear with le, because the indirect object pronouns are me, te, le, nos, les. So here we go. El mesero or camarero la sirve a ella. So we need to replace here we replace la comida just because we're kind of getting a little bit more advanced because we practice it so much and I just keep it with the sentences, but you can take it out if you choose. It depends on how your class is doing and how they're understanding. So we need to replace a ella. So it would be el camarero se la sirve. There is a thing in Spanish that if you have le and les in front of la, las, lo or los, you have to turn that first indirect object pronoun to se. And that is what's happening here. So eventually the students are going to do that naturally. So here's another example. El chef cocina la comida para nosotros. We are the receivers. So I'm going to replace para nosotros with nos. So who is receiving this action of being cooked the food? The food, eating the food is nos. So it's we. So el chef la cocina para nosotros. And then we replace nosotros with los. El chef nos la cocina. So let's take a look at the end just for the purpose of the video. So we have to mix these two, and it gives you more information about the popular direct objects that we usually use, which is lo and la and los and las. And here are the indirect object pronouns and what they answer, more information, just a little review for the next day because this does take about reviewing takes about 2 to 3 days, so we need to review all of it. So this presentation is a little long because I wanted to spruce it up for my class this semester, but I'm going to skip a lot of slides for the purpose of the video. So yes, here it reiterates that we need to replace the lelola. Like I say in the classroom, there's no lelola in Spanish, only when Ricky Martin sings, with se. So that first le or les gets replaced with se when they are together. You can't have the both ll indirect and direct together. So yes. Let's see. That's basically it. There's plenty of examples. There's also examples from the book. You can go over them, and the children should be able to use them together. Also, there is extra examples other than identifying that and rewriting the sentence. There's also different ways and where in the where we can position the indirect object pronouns, but that would be another video in itself, teaching video, to do it separately because the children, I mean, the students, I do examples on the board, but I do them after they have really dominated doing direct and indirect together. And then I say, well, you're going to see more examples like this. You're going to see them at the end of an infinitive, or you're going to see them at the end of a present progressive verb with a star. So yeah, that's all I wanted to explain. I feel like we had many worked examples here. I use narration and I also use these good visuals of this presentation I had. And that's all. Thank you.